The Argo SRV is the tow truck of the universe. It is that single player, I want to rescue, recover, retrieve other vehicles in the game.
SRV stands for Standard Recovery Vehicle.
It's for tugging other ships around. Maybe they're disabled, maybe it's a difficult docking situation, it needs help.
It's meant for when you've got ships stranded out in space that they need some help. You're there with your flashing lights and your bright orange ship to go and rescue them.
It's for the player that wants to help rather than go out murdering.
You often go out murdering?
Yeah. I often go out murdering.
Argo has a very strong visual style in our game, so there's a few kind of core elements that we knew we had to have. It's got to be orange, there's no question about that. It needs to have kind of VTOLs that rotate, it needs to have big engines at the back, and it needs to feel kind of super industrial and very functional compared to a lot of our other manufacturers. One of the things that we learned early on when we were doing Argo ships as a manufacturer is, as the orange is such a bold colour, we really want to kind of keep that contained as much as we can. So what we try and do now with our Argo ships is we still want them to be orange, we still want them to be very recognisable, but we want that all to be contained within one area, and then the underside is kind of like the more mechanical area and the kind of black bellies. And I think that difference between the tops and bottoms really helps to add some believability to the vehicle. Not everyone loves orange, so we will have different paint options available.
The Argo SRV has three tints. It has a really nice white one and a black and yellow one, which is my favourite. And it has also this blue beigey one, which I think out of all the ships is kind of new for Argo, that kind of colour combination. My favourite thing about the exterior of the SRV is that it's very consistent with both the mole and the raft. It has this diamond shape on the top with the circular feature. I like that kind of consistency. It really feels like a family of ships.
Originally, the SRV didn't have much of an interior, but we pushed for like a bigger one.
We've tried to balance both the Argo utility feeling that everyone loves, along with keeping it nice enough that you could bring in a couple of explorers whose ship's down. You'll enter the engineering area. This is actually where you enter the ship. The airlock or the lift is in the floor of that room. Within this room contains all the components for the SRV. It's kind of like the raft's corridor, but all compacted and refined more into a single space, so everything's kind of jammed in there, so you can access everything at once if you need to. Moving on, you'll go onto the bridge. You'll sort of be greeted by your standard Argo styling, your space trucker seat, your ball bars and your nice angled glass. Then moving on to the rear of the ship, you've got the habitation area. In the habitation area, you've also got a bed for if you're long hauling, the suit locker for going into hazardous places, and like a gun rack, so you've still got that utility in there as well.
My favourite little bit about that is it's got like a sort of like rest and recovery area for the person being rescued. So they don't have to stay in their busted up soft air ship. They can come over to the SRV, sit at the table, get like a recovery coffee.
That you can kind of sit down and look out and you can see your ship being towed by the SRV.
The Argo SRV has a very large tractor and towing beam assembly on the rear of the ship that the pilot controls. So they navigate towards the vehicle, swap to the turret view that controls the tractor beam, and then they position it and lock onto that ship. Reasons why you would use it: maybe you've run out of fuel and you don't want to pay some exorbitant staff owners fees to refuel. You want your friend to come tow you back to a spaceport. And most importantly,
most people don't know that you can get repaired from soft def now. Obviously, you won't be in a safe place if you got put into soft def, so the SRV is going to come along, tow your ship to a safe location where it can get repaired. It's like a car recovery vehicle if you break down on the motorway sort of thing.
It can be towed back to a spaceport, and then that ship can be repaired back to a state of flight.
The SRV really begins to shine once the resource management system comes into play, because you won't always be in full soft def. You could have messed up your engines.
Thrusters could have malfunctioned. Power plants could be worn out and need replacing. All these things are going to result in ships that are fairly immobile, or ground vehicles that are immobile, And we don't want players to just simply go and claim on their insurance for these things as their first port of call. We want people to recover it. It's going to be much more beneficial to you in the short and long term. In terms of using the SRV, the shields need to be down on the target vehicle or ship. So that could be the player has willingly lowered their shields, or they're in a state where the shields no longer function. And it needs to be not fighting against the SRV in terms of movement.
The idea of making a tow truck, I think, is a great idea. When you're a little boy and you grow up and you see the breakdown vehicles sat at the side of the road with their flashing lights on, being able to kind of recreate that, but for our own audience, is super fun.
So that's the SRV, and it is another great entry point into a support career.
We've got a lot of combat and commerce type ships, but it's the next true support class vehicle.
For those of you who don't want to fight, don't want to haul goods, the SRV is there to help you support other players and NPCs in the game.
You want me to say I'll be a tow truck driver? I'm more of a Drake guy.
So you're more of the getting towed guy?
I'm definitely more of the getting towed guy, yeah. I will need a friend with an SRV nearby.
It's for good people who like to help others, unlike Drake owners.